Okay, let's unpack this. Um, Imagine paring back, into the early 1970s. We're looking through declassified intelligence documents here.
Yeah, it's a really intense period. Global politics shifting, civil rights movements mixing with international stuff, secret operations happening.
Exactly. So today we're taking a deep dive into two, well, pretty intriguing documents. They paint a vivid picture, though, sometimes a bit murky, of these really complex
And
dynamics.
what's fascinating, I think, is how these records give us this sort of raw glimpse into the huge web of connections intelligence agencies were tracking back then.
Right.
We'll be looking at people, organizations, events,
Right.
Middle East, North Africa, all tied together by dates and, well, seemingly different goals.
So our mission today is really to pull out those key bits of info and connect the dots for you, the listener.
Right, so you can understand not just what happened, but maybe get a sense of why it mattered, why it was being tracked.
Okay, so first stop. September 4th, 1970, we've got a restricted handling document, U.S. headquarters, and it reveals this really interesting request from a group called the Organization of Arab Students, OAS, here in the U.S.
Yeah, the OAS. And if we look at the bigger picture, this document says the OAS asked an individual, Ismail Flory, to pick 5 young black Americans.
Okay, 5 specific people. For what purpose?
Well, the idea was for them to travel to the Middle East, specifically Jordan and the United Arab Republic, which, at that time was Egypt and Syria joined together,
Right.
and their mission to propagate the Arab position among black Americans. So it's a deliberate effort, really, to influence opinion across continents.
Linking domestic U.S. politics with international agendas.
Even
Very
more.
direct. And the
Absolutely.
details of the trip itself are pretty revealing, too, aren't they?
Oh, yeah?
They were set to leave Chicago August 24th, 1970. Olympic Airlines, Flight 420. Can you imagine that journey?
Long flight. Stops in Montreal, then Athens. Athens was the final destination listed.
And get this,
Yeah.
the tickets. They were sent prepaid, all the way from Amman, Jordan.
Prepaid from Oman. But the actual travel agent stuff that was handled in Chicago.
Which, raises the question, who exactly were these people? Why them?
Good question. The document actually names them.
It does.
Yeah. Thomas Curtis and James Dillard. Then Christine Johnson, born 1909, Versailles, Kentucky. And in 69, she was the president of the African American Heritage Association.
An organization founded by Ismail Flory himself, the guy who picked them.
Exactly.
Wow.
Small world, huh? Also named Joe Howard and Joe Walker. Walker's interesting, too, born 34, Buffalo. In 69, he was a writer for Muhammad Speaks.
The Nation of Islam publication.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And apparently a friend of Henry Winston, who was the national chairman of the CPUSA, the Communist Party USA.
Oh, okay. So you've got Nation of Islam links, CPUSA links. What does the document actually say the intelligence community wanted?
Well, it specifically asks for any information on their travel. Contacts, activities, anything that might catch the eye of the various stations.
And stations means the intel offices abroad, right?
Right, like embassies, consulates, wherever they had people. It even suggests checking with the Athens liaison, specifically about anyone traveling without documents. They were definitely keeping tabs.
So a clear interest in tracking their movements and connections?
Definitely. The document itself is filed under CPUS Arab Relations. That tells you a lot about the lens they were viewing this through potential links between domestic groups and international movements, framed by Cold War national security concerns.
Okay, so that's 1970. Now let's jump forward just 2 years. October 2nd, 1972. We shift focus to North Africa, Algiers.
Right. Another declassified document. This one's secret, restricted handling.
And the subject matter is quite different, but still involves Americans abroad under scrutiny. This time, it's about hijackers. American hijackers seeking refuge in Algiers.
Yeah, a really dramatic turn. This document focuses mainly on 2 figures. First, Melvin McNair, born Greensboro, North Carolina in 1948, identified as one of the hijackers of a Delta plane back in July '72. And on October 2nd, the date of the document, he apparently showed up trying to get U.S. passports for his 2 kids and also for the child of George Edward Wright and Joyce Tillerson, who were also involved.
So it's not just the hijacking, but the practicalities of life in exile.
Yeah,
Getting documents for kids.
exactly. The human side of it, the logistics.
And who was the other main figure?
William Holder. He was involved in a Western Airlines hijacking. And the document states he was named by the Black Panthers International Section, the BPP, as their head in Algiers.
The BPP head in Algiers, that's significant.
Very. And it knows that Holder got the nod because the BPP international section was still effectively run by Eldridge Cleaver at that point.
Eldridge Cleaver, a major figure, obviously. But this raises questions about the BPP in exile, doesn't it? Were they all on the same page over there?
Well, that's the interesting part. Probably not. The document mentions others, like Peter O'Neill and Donald Cox. Cox had recently left Algiers, actually.
Left?
Cox apparently claimed he wanted to distance himself from Cleaver. Said Cleaver was, quote, only irritating the Algerians.
Irritating the hosts. Not good.
Not ideal, no. And McNair, for his part, said he hadn't even seen Cox for about 2 weeks. So it suggests things were kind of fragmented, not a tight-knit group.
So where were they living, and what were the rules from the Algerians?
Well, McNair, Holder, and some other hijackers were apparently living at the BPP Point Pescade Villa. But they rarely saw Cleaver, who had his own place, a villa in LBR.
Separate houses. Interesting.
And the Algerians. The document says they kept a close eye on Cleaver and his wife, Kathleen Cleaver, who was also there. As for the hijackers like McNair and Holder, they didn't get any official Algerian documents.
No papers.
No papers. No restrictions on moving around within Algiers province, but they'd been advised, probably strongly, not to travel outside of it.
So freedom, but contained freedom with surveillance.
Pretty much. And the money aspect is really something, too.
The ransom money from the hijackings, what does it say about that?
McNair was quite candid, apparently. He said he never really believed the Algerians would return the $1 million from the Delta hijacking.
$1 million. Huge sum back then.
Massive. He also knew about reports that $500,000 from Holder's Western Airlines hijacking had been returned. But he flat out said he didn't believe that report either.
Why not?
His reasoning was pretty cynical, or maybe realistic. He figured such a large amount of cash would basically override any political reasons the Algerians might have had for giving it back. Money talks, essentially.
High stakes indeed. And that money seems to have caused internal problems, too.
Oh, big time. The document describes a recent raid on the BPP headquarters there by the Algerian authorities.
A raid? By the Algerians? Why?
It was apparently triggered because Eldridge Cleaver wrote an open letter to President Boumediene, the Algerian leader, demanding the return of the hijack money.
Okay.
But here's the kicker. He wrote and sent this letter without getting approval from any of the other BPP members in Algiers.
Oh, wow. He just went for it.
Seems so. And according to the document, this caused a, quote, major split in the party. Really divided them.
You can imagine. Undermining their hosts publicly like that, without consensus.
Exactly. And McNair's own attitude during the interview is noted, too. He's described as being at ease, quite talkative.
Talkative to the people interviewing him for the document.
Yeah. He apparently said he was surprised to find Algeria such an advanced country, which is, an interesting observation.
And what about the passport situation? He was trying to get them, but didn't seem hopeful.
Well, when they asked him about applying for a U.S. passport himself, remember, he only had a driver's license for ID. His reply was pretty stark. He just said, we have nowhere to go, so I guess not.
Wow, that's poignant. Nowhere to go.
Yeah. He did say he expected to come back in a few days to check on the passport applications for the kids, though. It just highlights how precarious everything was for them. Exile, hijackings, internal splits, uncertain future.
So bringing these two documents together, 1970, the mission to influence opinion, and 1972, the hijackers in exile. What's the big takeaway here?
Well, I think they show the really intricate, often hidden links between domestic political movements in the U.S., international relations, and, of course, the constant watchfulness of intelligence agencies.
From trying to shape views back home to dealing with the consequences of radical actions abroad.
Exactly. And you get this compelling glimpse into just how wide the intelligence net was cast. They're tracking travel plans, who's friends with whom, internal fights within groups in exile, even down to disputes over ransom money.
Every detail potentially part of a bigger picture.
Right. Every detail could be seen as a piece of this larger global puzzle they were trying to assemble. These documents, they're raw, they're unpolished reports, but they really remind us that history is often way more complex and tangled than we might think.
And for you, the listener, maybe the aha moment here is seeing how these events weren't isolated. They're part of this continuous, interconnected story.
Yeah, and thinking about how different groups, activists, governments, revolutionaries saw each other and interacted across borders and ideologies during such a turbulent time.
So maybe here's a thought to leave you with. If these are just two documents that happen to be declassified, how much of our understanding of history is still shaped by what remains hidden? What other connections, what other stories might still be waiting in the archives?